at CSC. Of course, everything that CSC does has climate embedded in it, but our team looks at the macro climate policy questions, mostly at the global level, a little bit at the domestic level. So this last session, we wanted to present some of the latest trends in two areas where India is going to become a major participant, player. So the first one is on carbon markets, a hot topic always. We will present some of our field studies from India, presenting some perspectives. And the second is this emerging issue of trade and climate. This is much newer. It's something we started tracking only in 2023. And it is such a big abstract issue that we are still trying to understand how to analyze, how to research, how to put out some insights on the trade-climate connection. So for this, we published a report last year on one particular policy. Maybe CBAM. It's a very niche thing that the European Union is doing, but it's a much bigger issue. So I have today my colleagues Trishant Dev from the Climate Change Program. So he will do the first sharing session, presentation. We'll be very brief. We understand you've been absorbing a lot of information. Then he will be followed by Rohini Krishnamurthy, our colleague from Down to Earth. She's a climate reporter. She will be presenting some of her latest field observations, particularly for the agroforestry sector, a growing area of focus within the carbon market in India. And lastly, I will present some of our work on this trade climate issue. And then, of course, Sunita ji will moderate a very interesting discussion, I'm sure. So with that, I'll hand over to Trishant to kick off. And over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to discuss about carbon markets. In a term we often get to hear is carbon credits, or also called carbon offsets. And there are two prominent ways how we get to hear about carbon credits today. One is sometimes we take a flight and we get an option that you can make your flight carbon neutral. There is an option, if you can see in the screenshot, that somebody is buying a flight from JFK to London, and they have an option to offset the emissions of their flight. And then on the other side, we have these kinds of things. Money is raining down on farmers by farmers planting trees or doing some agricultural practice that is getting them carbon credits. But how is this happening? As the last speaker was talking about the gut microbiology and how we need to ask how is this happening. And the difference there was it was a question being asked to scientists. Here the question has to be asked to journalists. They need to know, they need to show it to the people how this carbon offsetting is happening. Where is this coming from? So a fashion show happened in Paris in 2023. It was called the Stella McCartney fashion show. And it was announced as a carbon neutral event. And I wanted to know where this carbon neutrality came from. And I traced back the origin of this climate neutrality to a project where some farmers had planted trees some 20 years ago in Chhattisgarh and Odisha. But how is this connection being made? Where is this coming from? It's something that we can explore, we can ask. So carbon offsetting basically is when a company, a corporate, a government, which wants to reduce its emission but is not able to do so directly, pays someone else to reduce emissions or remove emissions, and this is called as offsetting. And I give an example here. For a company wanting to reduce its carbon footprint, but if unable to do so directly, could offset its emissions by investing in a project that reduces emissions. And this is the flow of it. Let me just explain it to you in a brief. There is a project, let's say a plantation project. There is a scientific premise of this project that trees sequester carbon. उत्सर्जन होता है पेड़ों के द्वारा कार्बन का. And there is somebody called as a project developer or consultant who will evaluate the carbon sequestration of those trees for you. You are the owner of the land and you have planted trees. You want to earn carbon credits for it. So they will evaluate all the details. They will submit the details to a body that is called as the standards body. These are unregulated international bodies. They also function as what is called as registry. I'll come to that. And these bodies issue carbon credits to that project. So this mechanism is called issuance. And you see the blue side of this figure. This is the supply side. So this is the origin of carbon credits, the issuance part. You have the project developer who takes the project for certification to the registry, and then you have third-party validators and verifiers who verify that yes, this much is being reduced or sequestered through this project by the project, and yes, this is eligible for carbon credits. And then there is another side of it. So this was the supply side, and if you look at the orange side, now you want to sell carbon credits. Now you had a plantation, you earn carbon credits for it. Now you want to sell it because you have to make money out of it. So you sell it to people who need carbon credits, the company who wanted to offset their emissions. So that is called the end buyer. So when the end buyer uses your credit to claim its emissions, it's called retirement of credits. So this is a bit technical, but the terms are important. And today, the market is quite a dense entity. There are different kinds of markets world over. There is a compliance market, mostly operated by governments. We are going to talk about what is called as voluntary carbon markets, because this is what exists in India right now. There is no compliance market as of now. Specifically in that voluntary carbon market, we are going to focus on certain set of voluntary carbon market programs which are prominent in India. So, but let me just talk about the expectations and the size of this voluntary carbon market. Some actors have, in recent times, attempted to suggest that the voluntary carbon market could be a means to mobilize private finance for climate action. But so far, the numbers tell a very different story. If you see, the market peaked at $2 billion in 2021. And in 2023, the market was able to commit, which is also subject to realization, only about $14.1 billion in investments. And this is about 1% of what developing countries have paid as foreign debt. So, a bit ironical that the money is being thought as a sort of flow for climate investments in developing countries, but developing countries are paying 100 times more in terms of their debt to developed countries. And even if we talk about that $14.1 billion number, which is not a small number for a specific industry, the voluntary carbon market industry, we need to understand where this money is going. Is it going where it is claimed to be going, which is the communities that are shouldering the burden of emission reductions? The person who planted the trees, the farmer who introduced a new practice to reduce its emissions. Is the money flowing there? And what CSE's studies and investigations have revealed, specifically our study in India, is that this is not happening at all. And so I'd like to introduce you to the study that we did 2 years ago. It was a study and it's published as, it's called as Discredited. We traveled to different locations to study these offset projects that exist in India. And India turns out to be one of the largest source of carbon credits in the world. There are over 1,600 projects today in the market from India. And it was incredibly difficult for us to understand where these projects are located. I would open a file of the project design document to see the location of the project, and it would fetch me a link to the Wikipedia page of Geography of India. So that is the specificity of location that I'm being given about a carbon credit project. So we, anyway, analyzing hundreds of documents, we came across certain locations, and we traveled to some 40 locations to study 5 different kinds of projects, improved coke stove projects, afforestation. Then there is something called as alternate wetting and drying agriculture, which is taking off, and household biogas projects and renewable energy projects. The details of this study in the findings have been given in the report. This is the top line assessment of how the market is doing in India. It's about a $1.2 billion market. The number of credits that Indian entities have been issued is equivalent to about 361 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. That is about 3 times the annual emissions of Bangladesh. So it's not a small number. And about 214 million credits out of them have been retired. And if you see, these are the sectors where carbon credits have been issued. Mostly for renewable energy, 90% of the carbon credits issued have gone to renewable energy projects in India. Now, the forestry, land use, and household and community, where you get cook stove projects, is picking up. So, as I was saying, we had some difficulty in understanding where the projects are, what these projects are about, and how much emission reduction are they claiming around. We wanted to, after we did the project, we wanted to kind of come up with a database that could make this information publicly available to everyone. And to that end, we've been working on a database that enlists all the projects that exist in India and some particulars about those projects, and we hope to make it into. And we are coming up with a database on this voluntary carbon market that exists in India. We'll just show you some of the top line things highlighted in this dashboard and how we can use this dashboard. So if you see, there are 1,696 projects in India listed across 2 main registries. Registries are the bodies that issue carbon credits. And of those 1,696 projects, 871 projects have been issued 361 million carbon credits in different sectors. Sectors are listed here. If you just see, these are the 2 registries, and I just select one registry and the map changes to depict what sort of sectors have got what share of credits. These are the subsectors for which carbon credits have been issued: wind energy, cook stoves, solar power plants, afforestation. And these are numbers by states. Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu have got the highest number of credits, but under this standard, if I select both, this is the number. And these are the sectors, the subtypes of projects. These are the top developers who have been issued credits. You can see JSW Energy, EKI Energy Services, Jayaprakash Hydro, Adani Group. One of the interesting thing about carbon markets and the basic premise of carbon credits is you are demanding money for a project that you cannot fund yourself. So whenever a company asks for carbon money, it is saying that I can't fund the project myself, so I need carbon credits for it. So all these companies are claiming that we can't fund the projects, so we need carbon credit to fund the projects that we are doing. This is more issuance information. Something interesting here is that we have made a project-wise information data available. I'll just show you an example. So let's say if I have to look at a project in Karnataka. Okay. Karnataka. Okay. Let me go to Karnataka. Yeah. So these are the projects, 170 projects are listed here.
So these are projects against which carbon credits were purchased.
Have been issued to these projects. Now these projects will sell carbon credits to companies outside India. There is nobody who purchases carbon credits in India. Very few companies do that. Most of the carbon credits that are issued to these projects are sold in the foreign market, Western countries where companies like Shell, where companies who fossil fuel companies or airline companies who want to use those credits against their emissions purchase the credits. So these are all the projects that generate the carbon
And
credits.
those companies you showed like JSW and all of that, they are also then also selling credits.
They are selling the credits.
They're
They are the
selling
generators of credits. So I selected a project. This is a Tamil Nadu based project. And you see it has been issued these many carbon credits. And out of those carbon credits, these many have been retired. Retired as in these many have been sold to companies outside India who have retired these credits.
What is monetary value of these units?
Now that's, I think, the biggest question, and that's where our frustration is. You have to understand the effort that Prashant has made into putting this database together. It doesn't exist. The lack of transparency is amazing. He's gone project by project, Prashant,
Yes.
and downloaded it, fed it into a database, and is presented here. There are two missing links here. One, what is the price at which the carbon credit was finally sold? No information at all. You hear that from Rohini as well when she's talking about agroforestry. But the other thing, Trishant, that you really have found is who they have sold it to as well. You have no idea. So in this case, did you finally find something where the retired credits went?
Just coming to it. So this is the project that I was asked to highlight. So these are the credits issued. You understand issuance, right? So let me just come to retirement. I just selected this same project ID from this list. This is 724, right? The 724 number is here. Sorry. If I go down, this is the crediting history. When the credit was issued, how much credit was issued. And this is the retirement history. Now this is very interesting. You see no information. There is no information on who retired the credit, who used the credit, who bought the credit. But some information who have voluntarily disclosed it is here. Some city council used it to claim climate neutrality against their own whatever objective they had. And this is some foreign city council who used carbon credits from a project that is based in Karnataka. Yeah.
How much carbon does one credit have? Like
one credit is equivalent to 1 ton of carbon.
1 ton.
Yeah.
So is there a share market kind of thing trading in this or an auction house?
Yes, it's both. Actually, there are two kinds of ways in which the carbon credit is traded. One is direct over-the-counter trading, or there are exchanges which also sell carbon credits in bulk. There are also marketplaces like Amazon where you just buy the credits. So yeah, this is a database that we are still working on, but it's very much going to be publicly released very soon, and will be helpful for you all to know what kinds of projects exist in India and how we can understand what these projects are doing, where the carbon credits are going.
But mostly developing countries, they are selling carbon credits to Western countries. They are supposed to give their contribution towards your commitment. Their commitment towards carbon.
What do we get in return? So what we get in return, as Shanti speak on our behalf, just so that we can stepping in just. What we get in return is money, supposedly, okay? And that's what Rohini will discuss now. Because this marketplace has been designed, there's nothing wrong with saying that I need renewable energy, I need to move towards cook stoves in my country, I need to grow trees, agroforestry, and as I grow the trees, sequesters carbon dioxide, and the amount of carbon dioxide that I have generated can be sold, and so I get money for it. It's a great idea. The question that I think we had, and Prashant may have shown you our reports last year, where we did this series of investigations in India on how these carbon markets are actually working on ground. Because our issue is not the idea of the carbon market, but how is it being implemented on ground? Are people benefiting? Is the carbon credit that is being taken is actually real, or is it just computed? Do you know how real it is? I'll give you a simple example that Prashant wrote about a year ago, which is cook stoves, which is a lot of cook stove projects. It's the most popular project. Okay, now कुक स्टोव्स इज कि मैंने आपको आके आपके घर में कुक स्टोव दे दिया. कहीं पर तो प्रशांत तुमने देखा था कि कुक स्टोव का दाम भी लोग दे रहे हैं. हाँ, कर्नाटक में कि वो पैसा भी दे रहे हैं. ये भी नहीं है कि फ्री मिल रहा है उन्हें. ठीक है, उनको कुक स्टोव मिल गया. अब ये है कि उस कुक स्टोव, इम्प्रूव कुक स्टोव, द लॉजिक ऑफ इट इज आई हैव गिवन यू एन इम्प्रूव कुक स्टोव. That improved cook stove will burn that much less wood or biomass as compared to your traditional cook stove, and therefore that improvement, the reduced amount of biomass burnt, translates into carbon avoidance. This is not sequestration, but avoidance of carbon dioxide emitted into the atmosphere. और उसके आपको credits मिलते हैं. हमारा जो हमने जब स्टोरी करी थी और एनालिसिस किया था, इसमें दो बड़े सवाल आए. एक तो most times when the cook stove was given to women, in many cases we found they were even paying for it. But the larger point was that the avoidance is can only be calculated if I use the cook stove. Okay? अब वो यूज तो कर रही नहीं है. सब जगह हम गए तो वहाँ पर एलपीजी भी है, वो बुक स्टोर भी है, 4 बुक स्टोर अलग अलग कंपनियों ने बांट दिए हैं. हाँ, अभी इसको हमारे बहुत स्कैंडल्स इसमें, मगर आपको नया स्कैंडल सुनाना चाह रहे हैं. ये हमारा नया इन्वेस्टिगेशन है. और सवाल हमारे लिए है कि हम ये जलवायु परिवर्तन, क्लाइमेट चेंज को रिड्यूस करने के लिए कर रहे हैं. अब वो जो क्रेडिट है, प्रशांत टेल मी राइट, द वन दैट आई लव, वो किसी फैशन शो में गया था ना, पेरिस फैशन शो, छत्तीसगढ़. हाँ, तो अभी तो बता ही लिया आपको छत्तीसगढ़ वाला केस. मगर सवाल ये है कि आपने उसको बेच दिया. अब वहां पर जिसने खरीदा उसने कहा अब तो मैं फ्लाई ऑफ कर सकता हूँ क्योंकि मैंने अपना इमिशन ऑफसेट कर लिया. मगर वो इमिशन तो ऑफसेट हुआ ही नहीं, क्योंकि वो औरत ने कुक स्टोव तो इस्तेमाल ही नहीं किया और उसकी अकाउंटेबिलिटी नहीं होती है.
नोट छाप के चला.
बिल्कुल. तो ये हमारी लास्ट ईयर की इन्वेस्टिगेशन थी. आज हम लोग आपको एक नई कहानी सुना रहे हैं. रोहिणी जी.
Karnataka Forest Department is distributing free LPG connections.
बिल्कुल. We found all that additionality. We found different कि आपने बायोगैस, the best is the biogas plants of प्रशांत. 1 साल पुराना है तो मेरा दिमाग नहीं काम कर रहा है. मध्य प्रदेश में गए थे ना, तो मध्य प्रदेश रतलाम में. हाँ, कि वहां पर हम बायोगैस प्लांट देखने गए तो अब स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की सब्सिडी इस्तेमाल हुई है बायोगैस प्लांट लगाने को. ठीक है, अब उसका क्रेडिट किसी सूटेड बूटेड आदमी ने लिया. ठीक है, और वहां जाके बेच दिया. लोगों को कुछ नहीं मिला. और सवाल ये है कि वी आर लिटरली द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट इज सब्सिडाइजिंग सम सूटेड बूटेड. That was the big. अभी let's go.
एक छोटा सा क्वेश्चन. अगर क्लीन फ्यूल, कुकिंग फ्यूल को अगर क्रेडिट सब मिल रहा है, कार्बन क्रेडिट, तो उज्ज्वला में क्या सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को मिल जाएगी?
नहीं, उन्होंने कभी अप्लाई नहीं किया.
अप्लाई करें तो मिलेगा
नहीं. वो फॉसिल फ्यूल है मगर कर सकते हैं क्योंकि एलपीजी इज लेस पोल्यूटिंग देन वुड, राइट? तो उसका कुछ हो सकता है. इनफैक्ट जो आपका सवाल है, जस्ट होल्ड ऑन टू इट, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट सवाल है. एंड इंडियन गवर्नमेंट इज ऑल्सो साइंड एन NDC, which is nationally determined contribution, कि हम इतना करेंगे टू रिड्यूस. अब ये जो सारे कुक स्टोव प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, वुड वाले प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, ये तो हमारे एनडीसी में नहीं काउंट होंगे. ये तो आपने बेच दिए. पेरिस को बेच दिए, किसी और को बेच दिए, किसी का हमने देखा था, हमें मिला था मिशेलिन ने अपने एम्प्लॉइज का ट्रैवल उसके अगेंस्ट ऑफसेट किया है, तो ये हमने बेच दिया। अब जब हमें अकाउंट देना पड़ेगा कि हमने ये रिड्यूस किया, वहां के लोग कहेंगे ये तो आपने तो पहले बेच दिया भाई, ये डबल अकाउंटिंग है। तो प्रशांत और आपकी जो स्टोरी थी जब इन्हें किया था, प्रशांत रोहिणी अवंतिका की, इसमें प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स ऑफिस से भी हमारे पास फोन आया था, इन लोगों ने प्रेजेंटेशन करी थी और हमने यही कहा था कि आप डेटाबेस तो बनाइए भाई, कुछ तो रेगुलेशन देइए, हम ना और हाँ नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम कह रहे हैं रेगुलेशन तो बनाइए। उसके बाद बी ने कुछ छुटपुट कदम लिए हैं, मगर ये कंपनी जो मध्य प्रदेश की कंपनीज हैं, कौन है मध्य प्रदेश से, इंदौर से, यहाँ थैंकफुली कोई नहीं है, ठीक है, आपकी कंपनियां बहुत ज्यादा पावरफुल, ठीक है, पावरफुल है कि जब एक दिन मंत्री ने कह दिया कि ये क्रेडिट स्ट्रेट नहीं होंगे, पूरी शेयर मार्केट उनकी गिर गई। अगले दिन मंत्री ने कहा कि वो तो मैंने गलती से कह दिया। I have similar. We'll come back. I'll open it up. Just hold on. I want you to hear the story because there are people here from. This is new information we're bringing to you. So Rohini, you can see there's a lot of interest here, and I'm going to have to ask you to cut it down. Okay? अवंतिका लास्ट ईयर जब किया था तो ये लोगों ने इतना एक्साइटमेंट नहीं दिखाया था, तो हमने इस सेशन को कम कर दिया था, ये सोच के कि ये तो पुरानी स्टोरी हो गई और आप लोग सब जानते हैं। मुझे लगता है इस सेशन को टाइम लेना चाहिए।
ये भी वक्त लग रहा है शुरू करने में। ये कार्बन क्रेडिट का किस्सा कुछ इस तरह का लग रहा है।
That's why I wanted to give you something new because we had already explained to you last year the 3 case studies. We wanted to give you something new.
So this database is going to be a tool that we hope that media can use and access and investigate more projects.
ये बहुत मेहनत से बनाया है प्रशांत ने database. It's taken huge effort doing the database. So please give him a big hand. Okay, Rohini, the floor is yours, and there are people ready to jump.
Thank you, ma'am. So agroforestry is often seen as a win-win strategy where local communities can benefit from the sale of timber or any sort of produce, and it also helps the climate as it sequesters carbon.
Need to close.
फिर से हम करते हैं, ठंडी लग रही है, रखें दो नहीं फिर अच्छा।
So close to 20% of the global afforestation and deforestation projects listed on Vera and Gold Standard, these are the 2 standard sectors, major ones, are located in India, and of the 90 odd projects, 11 projects are registered.
Can I request everyone at the back to please be seated? Sir?
बैठ जाएंगे, हाँ, go ahead.
Let the presenters finish and then we'll have a good discussion.
Little louder, Rohini, go ahead.
So close to 20% of afforestation and deforestation projects are located in India, and of the 90 odd projects that are listed, only 11 are registered and 10 have received carbon credits. And of these 11, 9 are being implemented by farmers on their land. So this is just to give you an overview. There's also rising demand for agroforestry projects, and for example, companies like Meta, Microsoft, Google, and Salesforce, they've come up together for this symbiosis coalition, and to basically fund nature-based removal credits like agroforestry. And one criteria that they had listed for agroforestry projects to be eligible is that they have to demonstrate that there are some benefits for the community and what proportion of these benefits are reaching the community. And such projects tend to get a higher price. So just to understand how these projects are being implemented on the ground and what kind of benefit sharing arrangements exist, We visited, like Downward visited 17 villages from September to December 2024. This is case one. So this is actually the same thing that Prashant was referring to. So this is the project by Mangalam Timber, which is based in Odisha. So yes, the fashion show, right. So this is, they set up eucalyptus plantations on degraded lands of around 12,000 farmers in Odisha, Andhra Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. And based on the project document, there was some sort of an agreement between the company, the farmers and the State Bank of India. So under that agreement, farmers, the company would actually provide saplings and fertilizers on a subsidized cost, competitive price to the farmers, and the farmers would take up the plantations, and also to help farmers maintain the plantations, the company got them a loan with the state, from the State Bank of India. So this is the information I had, and I've also spoken to one of the people involved in the project. He's not with the company anymore, but then he just basically explained the benefit sharing arrangements they had. So for every 100 rupees that is generated from the carbon credit, 76 rupees would go to the company just to recover the cost, the registration fee to get the project registered with VERA, for instance, and also conducting monitoring and verification and all of that. So that 76 rupees goes to that, and the remaining 24 rupees was distributed equally between the farmer and the company. So that means 12% of the revenue would go to farmers. I visited Bastar, one of the locations of the project, and what we saw is that farmers had no idea about the company. Many farmers did not know about Mangalam Timber. They had no idea about carbon credits, and also we found like no evidence that the farmers had received any carbon revenue. And what's worse is some farmers, actually the project put some farmers into debt. They were that was because of the loan. Some farmers could not, as in the saplings that the company had provided did not grow properly. They complained of poor quality saplings being distributed, and nobody came back from the company to talk to them. There was no guidance, nothing, and just 5 years later they get a notice from the bank asking them to repay the loan. That's what happened. The next bit is like, who bought these credits? So Zomato, if you've looked at the poster where they talk about, offsetting their carbon emissions, they had actually invested in, they bought credits from the MTPL project. And other people, the other organizations that have also got credits include IIM, Aggarwal Alumni Association, WeWork, and also the UK-based luxury fashion company Stella McCarthy.
Is this the Paris Fashion Show?
Yes, this was what we said.
The Paris Fashion Show. So the Paris Fashion Show bought credits from this end. And why are the farmers in debt? Why did they have to take it?
So, just to maintain the plantation, as in also for the labor,
they also had to pay the company, right?
That was another project.
Oh, the other project.
So this is case 1. Case 2 is mahogany plantation by this company called Mahogany Vishwa Agro Private Limited. It's a Pune-based company. This project involves around 315 farmers, and it's spread over 165 hectares, primarily in Maharashtra. What happened was, even in the previous case and in this case, the farmers have given up their rights to carbon credits. This was given to the company, and the company basically shares some percentage with the farmers. So that applied to the previous case as well and this as well. But the project document, which was uploaded on VERA, does not talk about what percentage will be shared with the farmers. So I visited Pune, and on day 1 I met with the founder, the director Sonali Shetty, and she took me around to meet a few farmers who were very happy with the project. They had no complaints. And the next day I went alone, based on I found the names of the farmers and the locations on an older project document. So I tracked them down on day 2, and many farmers were distressed. I saw a completely different picture. from what the company had painted. So farmers were distressed. Some did not have the trees. They lost the trees. They say it was because of water scarcity. Some were so distressed that if I don't get money, they told me that if they wouldn't get money, they would chop them down. Some were feeling trapped. Now, I'll just give you one example of this farmer Tambe from Motiwala Paris in Pune district. So he actually told me that he's having sleepless nights. He's been losing 2 lakh per annum because after a point the tree grows, he's not able to cultivate any other crop because of the canopy. And so one of the reasons why they were so distressed is because he had also shared a flyer with me, a flyer that the company had distributed to the farmers before he was recruited. And that flyer made really lofty promises. They were promised carbon revenue. From year 5, they were promised annual advance payment from year 3 till the end of the agreement, which is 15 years, and also that they would get as high as 1 crore after the end of 15 years from the sale of timber. So now what happened was the plantations began in 2019 and I met them in 2024. So they had received no payment, no advance payment, and they were also losing income because they couldn't do anything else along with the trees. So I also managed to get 2 contracts, one shared by Sonali Shelke and the other by the farmer Tambe, who did not have the contract. He signed the contract, he did not have a copy of it, and he went and he fought with the company and got a contract in Marathi. The initial contract was in English, so he couldn't read it, he didn't know what the terms and conditions were. So when we went through both the contracts and the flyer, there were too many discrepancies. The contracts make no mention of any advance payment of 50,000, by the way, 50,000 annually from year 3.
You're getting into detail.
Okay.
Move on.
There were discrepancies on what share of percentage of carbon credits would be shared with the farmers, whether it's 15% or 21%. This is the final case. This is eucalyptus plantation and poplar plantation in Punjab. There are 2 different projects. They are implemented by the Forest Department. Forest Department is the project proponent, and TERI and BNB supported the project. And BNB is in charge of trading of carbon credits and also sharing or deciding on what percentage of income would go to farmers. Here, the Forest Department, by being the project proponent, had no idea about what the price per credit was or the benefit sharing or what percentage was reaching the farmers. The MOU was signed between the Forest Department, BNB and TERI, and that document states $6 per credit would be shared with the farmer, but the Forest Department and TERI later told me that $8 was shared because they had received a higher income, and BNB also told me that the price per credit was $12 to $13, of which $8 was shared. This is the claim, but they provided no sort of evidence to back it. So some farmers received, while others are yet to receive income. So moving on to conclusions, we see that afforestation, reforestation projects have, they fall in the range of $1 to $90 per credit, and the median price is around 32, which is higher than that of other carbon credit projects like forest management or renewable energy and all of that. And as we see in our case studies, it's been very difficult to access what the price per credit was and also the locations of where these projects are located. So the information is mostly not on public domain. We also reviewed all the projects and we saw that there was no predetermined benefit sharing percentage. It's usually left to the project developer to decide how much and if at all they want to share with the farmers. And another thing to keep in mind is when a project proponent says that they will share a net revenue, it's usually after the monitoring costs, registration costs are cut. So we'll also have to look into the budget to see whether the money that the farmers are receiving is even worthwhile. And we also analyzed 91 documents, and of which 84 are being implemented on the land owned by farmers. We looked at the project document to see what do they say about benefit sharing. 12 explicitly provide a percentage, 44 mention sharing of revenue, but they don't talk about the percentage that would be shared with the farmers. 21 are completely silent on the benefit sharing aspect. One says that they are not going to share any sort of revenue with the farmer. And 6 projects are vague. They don't tell us that if the benefits that will be shared with farmers are monetary or non-monetary. And most cases, MOUs and contracts are confidential. And another issue that we see is transparency. We cannot be certain that the claims made by the project proponents are actually reaching the farmers. So we need to have some sort of transparency to ensure that the local communities are involved and we see effective climate action. Thank you. With that,
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask Avantika to jump in now before we open the floor so that we get the full picture and then we will open up the floor. We have some time, so just hold on to your questions. You've got an idea from Trishant of the scale of the carbon credits. We've also put together a database. We want to show it to you. Trishant, is it publicly available now, or will you make sure it's available soon enough?
It will be
It will be soon. And he will send you all a mail because we want to help you to write. We haven't been able to, this database will not tell you the location of the village or the district where the project is. It will tell you the state. Then you have to dig deep further. Okay? Yes, you can, absolutely. She is public. Our cover story next time is Rohini's cover story. So I will be out today and tomorrow.
Okay, so I can see some people are leaving. I hope we are still keeping your attention. Okay, flights to catch. But we'll wrap this up soon enough. We'll keep it very brief. And so you heard about the latest developments in carbon markets. And shifting over now to another kind of a global issue, it has some links to carbon markets, but it's also a much bigger issue. This question of trade and how it's intersecting with climate policy. तो सबसे पहले यहाँ किसने बहुत recently tariffs के बारे में सुना है? With a show of hands, you've been hearing about tariffs. Now, tariff.
Everyone is.
Quick show of hands. Who has reported a story on tariffs recently? Trump के tariff man announcements. Okay, editorials. Okay. So this presentation is not about Trump and his tariffs, but it's a good hook to reel you in. I'll work backwards from some of these announcements. So most recently, Donald Trump has announced tariffs as a weapon against countries he doesn't like for various reasons, be it Canada and Mexico, and be it India, but he has said India has so many tariffs of its own that he's probably going to put retaliatory tariffs in the future. But other than tariffs being used as an economic weapon, there is a larger story that is emerging. So tariffs are one trade-related tool that have been used for decades, but there is an emerging overlap between trade and climate policies. So you would have seen some of these terms also out in global, domestic, local media. So embodied emissions, CBAM, green protectionism, carbon leakage, critical minerals. So all of this is kind of building up to a trend that we started observing in late 2022, where climate policies are overreaching into the area of trade, and the two are kind of influencing each other and interacting in some good ways, some not very positive ways. So to explain this trend, I'll step back to what is really driving this overlap between trade and climate policies. So almost everyone here is familiar that we have the Paris Agreement. We need to cut global emissions in order to control global warming. But to meet these targets, there have been many prescriptions set by different bodies, the IEA, the IPCC. Green technologies are very much at the center of this effort. So electric vehicles and electrification, renewable energy, industrial decarbonization. You've heard about many of these things over the past few days. But all of this requires policies to actually make this happen. And this is not just domestic decarbonization, कि हम अपने climate targets set करेंगे and उसको meet करेंगे. It also requires manufacturing capacity to make these green technologies that will be used around the world. So, in response to this need for green technologies that are going to play a big role in during the green transition, countries have been passing certain types of policies to build up manufacturing capacity domestically. Now, I categorize, so this is, I mentioned at the beginning, this is a kind of a big abstract issue. We are trying to bring it down to something that's easy to understand. So, 3 types of policies have been passed globally. You may have heard of the US IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, which was passed in 2022. The US ne bola under the Biden administration, $300 billion worth of subsidies for domestic green industry. The Europeans did something similar, much smaller. India's PLI scheme is trying to give some similar incentives for battery manufacturing, solar panel manufacturing. So that's domestic subsidies and one type of policy that are trying to boost green manufacturing. Another type is countries who have minerals that are being used for green technologies. So Indonesia has 50% of the world's nickel reserves. Most of this was being exported as raw nickel and Indonesia is not benefiting from it. So they banned the export of raw nickel and said we will process it domestically and invite companies to come to our country and set up factories to make batteries and so on. So they're trying to benefit from this domestic green industrialization. And the third type of policy that we have observed over the past 2-3 years is this idea of tariffs, but climate-linked tariffs. So one example is this CBAM, where a tariff is put on imports by the European Union based on the carbon emissions produced during the production of those commodities in the producer country. So I'll speak a little bit more about this. Now, what is a big driver for many of these policies other than the need to decarbonize, meet climate goals, all of that? Those are much more positive goals, but actually a big driving factor is the fact that China is actually dominating the production of most of these technologies, the processing of most of the minerals needed in these green technologies. So there are many such visualization of data available, but this is just one example. All of the red that you see are different green technologies and their component parts in which China is dominating their production and has the maximum manufacturing capacity, benefits. That has led to the Western economies becoming increasingly anxious. We have not built up this green manufacturing capacity. How will we compete in this new green economy? So a lot of these policies that I was referencing before, like the US IRA, the EU Green Deal Industrial Plan, are in response to the fact that China is now dominant in the production of these green technologies. There are estimates that it will be very expensive for other countries to match up to what China is doing now. So to reduce dependence of China, Bloomberg estimated it will cost European Union $149 billion and it will cost the US $113 billion. So they are nowhere in terms of competitiveness on green technology manufacturing. But what's interesting to us more as CSE going forward in this very nascent issue is 2 things. How will trade relationships change? And secondly, how will developing countries be affected economically, financially? So there's always been a suspicion that some of these measures will cause disadvantages to trade partners of these rich countries who are not so rich themselves. So to investigate this, last year Trishant and I embarked on this study to assess one policy, just to understand what is the possible impacts, because the European Union is saying this is this particular policy. The European Union is saying this is a great climate tool. It's going to encourage other countries to decarbonize. So we investigated what the possible impacts will be. So this policy is called the EU CBAM, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. So our report came out last year. You can go through it in detail. I'll just present some of our highlight findings from last year. So the CBAM essentially is everyone familiar with what a carbon tax is?
Yeah.
It's a tax that you impose on any process or entity on the basis of carbon emissions. So imagine if you are the European Union, you are importing steel from India. You also have domestic steel producers. Your domestic steel producers are operating under the Europe's domestic carbon market, the EU ETS, emissions trading system. Now, they are saying we don't have a level playing field countries in other regions, producers, are not paying a carbon price. So we want you to put a carbon price on them. So they are importing steel from India and now starting to place a carbon price at the point of imports, so that domestic industry is satisfied that we are not being unfairly taxed. So that's the justification for CBAM, essentially. And there's a lot more detail in the report. We wanted to understand how will this affect us, because it sounds good in principle, in theory, but actually there are always economic implications. So in our assessment for India's exposure to CBAM, the first thing we had to do is dig into trade data. Look at how much trade our country is doing with the European Union. And we found, so CBAM is currently being listed only for 6 commodities: aluminium, iron and steel, fertilizer, cement, electricity and hydrogen. Out of this, we are exporting only aluminium and steel, mainly to the European Union, and a little bit of fertilizers. So overall, about 10% of our total European Union exports are going to be covered under the CBAM, is what our analysis showed. Making some assumptions that if we applied a carbon price of 100 euro per ton, which is close to what the European Union's domestic carbon price is at most times, India will have to pay an additional tax burden of possibly 25% over and above the value of current exports to the European Union. And there are some assumptions made here. 100% of the costs may not be...
Details.
Okay.
Okay.
So 25% of additional tax burden possibly may be handed over to India. This is in our findings. The methodology is all in the report. I won't go through this in detail, but our analysis basically shows that a tool like CBAM is violating the principle of equity and common but differentiated responsibility. There has been a historic offshoring of dirty manufacturing from Western countries to developing countries. Now the same developing countries are being penalized for the dirtiness of carbon content of their exports at a time when climate finance has not been provided for our decarbonization. And we made a list of recommendations in line with that. So coming back to just the overall trade climate linkage question, in this new green economy, where will developing countries fit? What role will they play? It's a very complicated picture, but we are at a disadvantage from multiple perspectives, and that is what we need to be more and more aware of and question as most of these policies are coming up. So current trade rules are treating issues like subsidies or localization or import barriers as being bad for free trade. We don't necessarily disagree with this, but that's what the WTO regime is saying. So developing countries can't implement those policies for themselves, but rich countries are doing that. It's difficult for us to compete with the huge subsidies, $300 billion under the US IRA, for us to compete with subsidies like that for our own domestic green industry. For many other countries who have critical minerals, the question really is how will they benefit from those critical minerals? You look at the case of the DRC, Congo, where there is a resource grab happening between American companies, Chinese companies, Europeans, for the resources that Congo has. So how will we compete and stay afloat in this new green economy? This is one of the big questions. There are many things that should happen, but we are trying to find the right spaces in which to bring these up. Definitely more financing and support. Definitely ways for countries to benefit from their own resources like mineral reserves and so on. Definitely a rehaul and overhaul of trade rules that are completely not in line with the new climate reality. And more productive, equal partnership conversations that should happen at the bilateral level. And I'll just close with one thing that insight I picked up from Anil Aggarwal, CSE's founder, who engaged along with Sunita Ram on trade issues as far back as the 1990s. If we are starting to see trade and climate intersect, we will, as poorer countries, always be at a disadvantage if trade arrangements are the place where climate ambition is being demanded. So Anilji wrote that rich countries can put trade sanctions on poorer countries for non-compliance with environmental norms and poor regulations and so on. Can poor countries do the same? Can a Maldives or a Bangladesh demand that the US is the biggest historical polluter and hence we put trade sanctions on them? it's unlikely. So we are raising this issue at various spaces, at COP and at other multilateral spaces, and the conversation will definitely elevate from here.
Thank you, Avantika. Thank you. Okay. This is working. Maybe this is working. Yeah, I have a few minutes for questions, and I will take them. And again, all of you, please note them down, and I will get the end. And then Shubhra is here, or should be here, to give us the final thank you.
I need a very small clarification. You have said banks are asking
Switch on the mic.
switch on the pay for the loan.
एक मिनट, ये निकाल सकते हैं, ये निकाल।
So it was villagers who had to borrow money from bank for plantation,
Yes, exactly.
and the companies didn't pay for the plantation purpose.
No.
Land was farmers or villagers. They borrowed a loan from bank.
Exactly.
They are to repay bank, and they have to carry the whole risk.
Exactly.
But with the promise of gold in the future. Okay. ये इसी तरह से तो चीजें बेची जाती हैं, आप सोच लीजिए। ये हमारे देश में हो रहा है कि आपके स्टेट में हो रहा है।
I would like to ask you, because I also write on business, and I write a lot on small businesses as well. And one of the key concerns that MSME especially raises, everyone's asking them to be competitive, they should adopt green technology. गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से बहुत प्रेशर है, उनके एक्सपोर्ट क्लाइंट्स की तरफ से बहुत प्रेशर है, and then now there is this tax also on these certain sectors, and most likely I think it's said that it is also going to move to other sectors as well. But what I've also heard is that there is this whole disconnect, क्योंकि अब these MSMEs don't have that leverage, operating leverage to incorporate, because these are very capital intensive technologies. Their clients don't want to fund it, and the government also certainly doesn't. So, what is the solution? Because our country depends
हमारे
on
पास अच्छा सोल्यूशन है और अवंतिका बताएगी। हमने सरकार को एक बहुत तगड़ा सोल्यूशन दिया है, और पहली दफे है कि इस सरकार ने हम सबको बुलाया कॉमर्स मिनिस्ट्री में और हमारी खातिर करी, क्योंकि हमने उनको ऐसा तगड़ा सोल्यूशन दिया। कैसे इस्तेमाल करेंगे मैं नहीं जानती, मगर बताएंगे आपको। Yes, you have the mic. I'll continue.
So my question is, first of all, how is carbon credit in the first place generated? Is it only from the forests or trees, or like she's saying, green technology, people can also now generate carbon credit? Yeah, that's me.
Okay. Prashant, go to your thing and open that one chart.
One additional part to this question. That is there any government regulation in deciding? Because you can understand it's voluntary. But when people are planting trees, or some company is asking, taking the land on lease, is there any government agency that comes to play a role to regulate the things? And the second part, if somebody is planting trees, obviously it will survive for a long period of time. Whereas if someone is using a cooking stove, that neutralization of carbon is for a temporary period. Whereas tree plantation will go on for a few years. So, how is this decided?
What is the years, the duration for which the credit is given, okay? And how does that change? Yes, now let me move this side for the moment. Yes, please.
So that's a lot of information to process
I
in less than an hour. So
We will put all the presentations on the website, they're all there. Also, the cover story of Rohini with all the detail is going to be out tomorrow. But we wanted to use this time with you to just throw it all at you. You process it at your own time, please.
So I just wanted to know if all these mass afforestation programs being taken up by state governments, do they come under this?
Green India. Does Green India come under this? Make a note of it. Very good questions we are being asked. Please take notes of all of them.
So
We
the
need to
second
reply.
thing is who checks at the ground level or verifies whether the projects have the potential.
Prashant, that's for you. Take a note of it. Yes, I have all three of you, then I have you. I'll come to you, sir.
This is Sadasi from Odisha. I had worked in culture also, जहाँ पर जो ये होता है जो गोल इंडिया का भी है उधर, तो हमने देखा है बहुत सारा पोल्यूशन भी होता है, हमने तो जो कार्बन क्रेडिट के बारे में नहीं ये जाने उनके बारे में MCL क्या करता है या फिर जो NCL क्या करता है, लेकिन ये लोग तो चीट कर रहे हैं, देखा जाए तो चीट कर रहे हैं।
प्रदूषण का एक सवाल है, ये कार्बन क्रेडिट का एक दूसरा एक सिस्टम है जहाँ पर आप कह रहे हैं कि आप अगर प्रदूषण कर रहे हैं किस तरह से काम करें, आपका सवाल क्या है?
मेरा सवाल है कि जो चीट करते हैं, जो कंपनियां कार्बन क्रेडिट के नाम पर वो लोगों को भी इसका बेनिफिट नहीं मिल रहा है, तो क्या सोल्यूशन है इसका?
सोल्यूशन, गुड क्वेश्चन। आप ले लीजिए।
My question is for Avantika. As Trump administration is stressing on bilateral trade agreements rather than multilateral trade agreements, do you think that these the environmental question and environmental norms etc. would act as non-tariff barriers in those trade agreements?
Very good question. Very interesting question that we must look at. I come to you, Sudha.
I just wanted to know whether any technology transfer has happened within India or any other countries.
That I can tell you no, not even a question. Okay?
Oh.
Sudha.
Yeah, so as I am speaking now, actually there's a major agitation happening in Kerala, okay, over the deep sea mining project. So the first tranche of this deep sea mining project has begun. It is happening in Andamans and it's happening in of Kerala coast. Okay, so this mining, okay, I'm related to this mine. So now for all these they need metals and minerals. So now the land they are kind of exhausted. They're looking at sea. Now there is going to be another big issue is like it's going to affect all the marine fish wealth and all. As a coastal state, 9 coastal states we hold the resources of the entire oceans. So is it going to kind of this mining and I mean I don't know whom to ask. So.
I mean, Sudha, that question really I leave it to my colleagues, but frankly the answer to that is
Would it have any relation to your where are the minerals and mines going to come in for all these?
Very good question, because that's I think going to be a very big. Why is Ukraine a big issue? Why is Greenland a big issue? Why is the deep sea today a big issue? Why is the Arctic a big issue?
No, this first branch only. Now this is first phase. This is 5 phases. All the coastal states.
So I don't think we've looked at this project whether it's deep sea mining across the coasts of India. What are the minerals they are mining for?
Yeah.
I'm not
So
sure.
this nickel
So we
and
could-
all these things, is it coming in the
हाँ,
I haven't gone beyond that.
Fine, Sudha.
जो कुछ इंडस्ट्री गांव में आदिवासी लोग को इन्वॉल्व करके प्लांटेशन करते हैं, तो इसका कोई रेगुलेशन है कि वो प्लांटेशन जो क्रिएट होता है वो कितना साल रहेगा, या जैसे कि जेके पेपर्स मिले हैं
कोई रेगुलेशन है क्या? कोई देखभाल कर रहा है गांव वालों की कि पेड़ लगा रहे हैं, क्या लगा रहे हैं, कितने उनको पैसा मिलना है?
जैसे जेके पेपर मिल्स यूकलिप्टस,
वो दूसरा सवाल। नहीं, देखिए हम कार्बन क्रेडिट की बात
नहीं उसी में है।
नहीं,
और लोग 26 फार्मर्स को इंटरव्यू किया था, उनमें से 2 पाए थे CDM के अंदर 3,000 रुपया, और बाकी कुछ किसी को नहीं मिला। 3 साल के बाद पूरा काट के ले गया।
नहीं, बहुत अच्छा, मुझे इसके बारे में नहीं पता।
कंपनियां कार्बन क्रेडिट की खेती करवा दिया। हाँ, तो क्या हमारे किसान कंपनियों के गुलाम नहीं बनेंगे?
क्या हमारे किसान कंपनियों के गुलाम नहीं बन जाएंगे ऐसे? The new colonial slave trade. That is the question.
लास्ट टाइम इंडिया एनर्जी बिल में देखा मैंने कि कई कंपनीज हैं जो कि ये कार्बन क्रेडिट का वहाँ पे बिजनेस प्लान लेके आई हुई थी, और वहाँ पर वो काफी उसको वहाँ पर प्रमोट कर रहे थे। तो क्या ये कंपनी जो किसान जो प्लांटेशन कर रहे हैं, तो क्या कंपनी मीडिएटर के रूप में है उनके बीच में, कि डायरेक्ट उनका फाउंडेशन है, या कंपनी का कोई अलग मॉडल है, और क्या ये रेगुलेशन के अंदर है या गवर्नमेंट के नॉलेज में है?
बहुत अच्छा सवाल, और इसका आंसर भी काफी स्पष्ट है। Patricia, you're the last. Actually, you're the last one. Then I will first start with you, and then Patricia, and then.
The other question was what benefit does the other party get from buying these carbon credits?
See, ma'am, this is not a question, but it is an invitation for the CSP. I have seen 3 unsuccessful stories on this carbon neutral project, but a successful story in Wayanad, in my place. I am from the Hindu district. one successful story is done by a Grama Panchayat.
Good.
Yeah, and the last year they have got the President's Award.
To be written about. Okay? Because we are looking for such stories. We are not against carbon credits. We're asking for where is it that we can make sure that farmers benefit from it.
Farmers are getting benefit nowadays.
Good. We will definitely. Thank you for
The
that.
state government also granted 10 crore rupees for this project.
No, we will definitely
And
ratify
by the
it.
interest of this amount, they are paying for the farmers nowadays.
You want to go to Wayanad, right? Have you been? Not yet. So good. So she will come. She has to come to Wayanad to look at your landslides and your quarries. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
That was supposed to be planned. Okay, Patricia ji. Meghalaya is a hot spot for carbon credits. Isn't that right? The green carbon credit, Meghalaya had quite
Which is why I wanted him to show us that slide. I wish he had shown it because we need to go back and check on that.
Okay, dashboard.
Yeah, you please make this public now.
Yes.
जी और जितनी आप लोग इसमें स्टोरीज करेंगे ना, आप लोग याद रखिए कि ये चीजें कंपनियां स्ट्रांग है मगर आपकी पेन की ताकत उससे भी स्ट्रांग है.
So while he's trying to get at that, I have three questions to ask. One is you spoke about those cooking stoves. Are they kerosene stoves or LPG?
No, these are biomass stoves, but they use less wood. So your current wood stove, they are an improved version of that wood stove. They're not LPG, they're not kerosene.
Those stoves have never come to our part of the world. Then the point two is if you have carbon credits, then shouldn't you have carbon discredits for those who do it?
That's what would call discredit.
They are doing so much of mining and polluting the environment, polluting the rivers, polluting everything. Who is regulating all that?
That's true. That's a very good question.
Then the third point is we also have plenty of coking units, and those are the most polluting. We cannot even stop them. That is the reason why Birmingham is top of the pile.
Okay. Yes. But Trishant दिखाओ. पहले तो मेघालय दिखाओ.
Yeah.
मेघालय में you can see you have these projects. 7 projects. These are verified. These are registered, right?
These are listed. Some of them may be verified. Let's say if I check the status.
So
of
you
this,
do have a cook stove project. One in Garo. You have a reforestation project in Meghalaya.
What is the source of this data?
We have gone, so Trishant has gone to the website of Vera and Gold Standard.
which are the registries
Which are
which
the
register and issue credits?
Vera and Gold.
Yes.
Are these Indian companies or there are some private players also? Yeah.
These are private unregulated. Sorry, which companies?
Vera.
Vera and Gold Standard. These are international private companies which do not run on any regulation. They have developed their own standards for issuing credits.
There may be other companies also in India.
Yes. देखिए registries globally दो हैं. Let's understand the game. We skipped that at the beginning. So registries जिसमें आप जाके register करते हैं आपके project. आपको कुछ बेचना है. आप कहाँ बेचेंगे? आपको किसी global जगह बेचना है उस project को. तो global 2 major registries हैं. इनको Vera कहते हैं, Gold Standard कहते हैं. जो आपकी registries हैं. आप पहले जाके अपना project वहाँ register करते हैं. फिर वो प्रोजेक्ट को देखते हैं कि क्या इस प्रोजेक्ट के अंदर दम है कि नहीं है. इसी में फिर वो अपने कंसल्टेंट वगैरह इधर-उधर भेजते हैं. फिर वो कहते हैं कि ठीक है इस प्रोजेक्ट में दम है. अब इसको वेरीफाई हो चुका है. अब इसको रजिस्ट्री में हम लोग ने वेरीफाइड प्रोजेक्ट है. अब आप वो प्रोजेक्ट डेवलपर जो वो गया है वो जाके प्रोजेक्ट किसी भी जहां भी गया है वहां पर जाके कुक स्टोव या जो भी है उसको करता है. उससे फिर और ऑडिटर्स आते हैं, वेरीफायर्स आते हैं चेक करने के लिए आपने कुक स्टोव बांटा कि नहीं, आपका कुक स्टोव काम किया कि नहीं, आपके पेड़ लगे कि नहीं. सवाल यही है कि ये जो गुड रेट कंसल्टेंट आते हैं तो ये देखते नहीं है क्या? तो वो जब ये वो देखते हैं, वो लिखते हैं और उसके कारण उनका प्रोजेक्ट को क्रेडिट मिलता है और वो जो क्रेडिट मिलता है उसको फिर वो बेचते हैं और वो बेचते हैं किसी और कंपनी को। जैसे अगर आप हैं, लेट्स से आपकी कंपनी चाहती है कि आप बहुत प्लेन लेते हैं, आपका ट्रैवल का कॉस्ट बहुत है, उससे ज्यादा आपका CO2 होता है, तो कहते हैं हम क्रेडिट खरीदेंगे जिससे आपका CO2 हमने माफ करा लिया, ऑफसेट करा लिया। तो ये पूरा गेम है। अब इस गेम के अंदर this is don't get into this, but this I think or maybe just a minute, take a minute.
एक क्वेश्चन मेरा भी है।
मैम एक रोहिणी ने नंबर बोला था ₹76 जाता है ऑन
For that one project, 100 rupees. This also we don't have in writing. We got from the former employee of the project who told Rohini that हमारा डील है कि अगर 100 रुपये हम अर्न करते हैं तो हम 76 रुपीज हमारा वेरिफिकेशन वगैरह कॉस्ट में जाता है और उसके बाद हम 12 रुपये जो हम फार्मर को देते हैं और 12 हम रखते हैं। ठीक है, अब आप सोच लीजिए, और यही हमारा सवाल है कि क्या इसका कोई स्टैंडर्ड नहीं बनना चाहिए कि इतना आपको विलेजर्स को देना पड़ेगा, उनकी जमीन है, उनका लेबर है, उनका रिस्क है और कंपनी पैसा बना रही है इस पे। और आप डाउन टू अर्थ में देखिए, हमने कैलकुलेट किया है कितना पैसा कंपनी ने बनाया होगा ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द प्राइस दैट वी अंडरस्टैंड द कंपनी हैज गॉट। नाउ अगेन वी हैव बीन वेरी ट्रांसपेरेंट, वी आर गुड, शी इज अ गुड रिपोर्टर, शी हैज बीन वेरी ट्रांसपेरेंट इन एक्सप्लेनिंग वेयर शी हैज गॉट द सोर्स फ्रॉम, what is her assumption, but that assumption shows a massive amount of money made by the company not transferred to the farm. So that is the big issue. So you've done Meghalaya, can you do Assam?
So the only environment
No, we didn't go to Meghalaya. We are just listening to you these projects right now. You can take a look at them, and the idea is we can't go everywhere, but this is close to you. If you can go and take a look at the project, and the one offer I have is we can do some of the technical detailing for you. So if Trishant, I am offering you to everyone, okay? If you go to that project and you run into trouble, कि इसका number थोड़ा समझाओ, okay? Please get hold of Trishant. He has the ability to relook at the number and tell you, go to the project document.
we have a project called Payment for Ecosystem Services.
That is PS is different. That is the Assam. But just look at the Assam. PS is different. That is not part of this list.
So only environmentally conscious people buy carbon credits?
No, everyone buys. Every polluter is buying today. Please understand, how does the carbon credit purchase market work? It works on the basis I am a polluter. I want to get to offset my pollution.
So you're talking about these airplanes. So is it individual?
It's airplanes, it's individuals. आपने देखा Zomato has bought, Infosys is bought. Everyone is buying. That's the nature of the game today.
ये रिलीजन जैसा है कि जो बाप किया है वो पंडित को पैसा देके महामृत्युंजय
देखिए सुनील जी, ये सब थियरी है, आप लोग इतना इसमें मत खोइए। देखिए अच्छी चीज है कार्बन क्रेडिट, कोई खराबी नहीं है इसमें। आप कह रहे हैं कि आप अगर पेड़ लगाएंगे अपने गांव के अंदर, एंड इकोनॉमिक्स दिखाइए, अगर आप पेड़ लगाएंगे, अगर आपको $35 पर क्रेडिट मिलता है, आपका फायदा है, आप पेड़ और लगाएंगे, ये अच्छी चीज है, ये विन विन है। मगर हमारा सवाल है विन विन करने के लिए कोई रूल्स होने चाहिए, कोई ट्रांसपेरेंसी होनी चाहिए। आप लोग के जो सारे सवाल हैं, मैं एक क्विकली उसको एंड करूंगी क्योंकि शुक्र आ गए हैं कमरे में, जैसे कहते हैं ना, शहंशाह आ गया है। मैं भी भूखे आ गई, तो मेरा दिमाग उसी में था।
ये ऑनलाइन अवेलेबल अभी तक नहीं है, लेकिन हो जाएगा।
हम कर देंगे,
वही चाहिए।
हम एक हफ्ते में आप लोगों को ये ऑनलाइन करके, शुपर्णो आप सबको मैसेज भेज देगा, निशान का बिल्कुल तैयार है ये डेटाबेस, हम एक हफ्ते में इसको ऑनलाइन कर देंगे। ठीक है क्या? नहीं, I need to take one look at him and I won't have time to. Okay. I will take a look at it and he and I we will upload it.
mangrove forest.
Yeah, we'll take. I'm not answering anything. I just want to look at. I will answer very quickly all the questions. आप वो दिखा दीजिए आसाम. आसाम. So आसाम में देखिए आपके पास बहुत चूल्हे आए हैं. बहुत सारे चूल्हे आए. ठीक है. चूल्हे का प्रोजेक्ट सबसे पावरफुल सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट प्रोजेक्ट बन गया है. और इतना बड़ा स्कैम है मैं आपको क्या बताऊं. कितना बड़ा स्कैम है.
Free market to get carbon credits and do the share market.
Okay, I'm going to end this. Forgive me, and I'm going to take. Can I take the questions for you? Broadly, the questions I got is all the questions that we have.
एक क्वेश्चन मेरा है. हिमालयन स्टेट्स ग्रीन बोनस की डिमांड करते रहते हैं, तो ये जो फॉरेस्ट है इनके लिए वो भी कार्बन क्रेडिट के लिए डिमांड कर सकते हैं, क्लेम कर सकते हैं.
नहीं, सब कुछ कर सकते हैं. आपने किसी ने ग्रीन इंडिया का पूछा, वो भी कर सकते हैं. आपने एलपीजी प्रोग्राम का पूछा, वो भी कर सकते हैं. सवाल ये है, दिस इज व्हाट आई वांट यू टू अंडरस्टैंड द नेचर ऑफ व्हाट्स हैपनिंग टुडे. दिस इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड द वॉलंटरी कार्बन मार्केट. Voluntary carbon market में ये is voluntary in nature. There are no regulations. So globally there is a broad thing. There are 2 registries being created, and in those 2 registries you can go and register your project. You then have a whole lot. हमने तो रोहिणी की जो स्टोरी अगर आप देखेंगी, you have named the auditors who have gone and verified these projects as well. तो आप ऑडिटर को हायर करिए, वो जाके आपका चेक कर लेते हैं. 2-3 बड़ी कमियां इसमें से निकल के आ रही है. एक, there is no money coming back broadly to the communities which are putting in the labor. That is the biggest problem. I'm not against carbon credit. मैं आपको फिर से बता रही हूँ, but the money is not coming to the people what it should come. In the name of the poor, that these projects are being sold. अगर आप प्रशांत से पूछिए तो प्रशांत दिखाएगा आपको किस तरह से दुनिया में लोग जाके कहते हैं कि हमने ये फैशन शो किया क्योंकि हमने उस गरीब गांव में पेड़ लगाए, और उस गरीब गांव को फायदा हुआ क्योंकि हमने वो पेड़ लगाए, और आज हम फैशन शो कर पा रहे हैं. ये इस मेल की दिस इज द नेचर ऑफ द गेम. मुझे कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, आप कर लीजिए, मगर उस गरीब गांव की गरीब औरत को पैसा तो दीजिए. अब इसके अंदर ये सब बड़े सवाल आता है कि क्यों नहीं मिल रहा है. क्योंकि इसका कोई रेगुलेशन नहीं. ठीक है, ग्लोबली नहीं है तो हमारी सरकार को तो करना चाहिए भाई. जब प्रशांत अवंतिका ने ये डेटाबेस पहली दफे दिखाया तो सरकार itself was stunned to see it. They have never seen this database. They don't have a database. अगर जब प्रशांत इसको पब्लिक करेगा, मैं आपको बता रही हूँ, किसी के पास सरकार में डेटाबेस नहीं है. अब ये सब चीजें देश में हो रही हैं, आपके प्रांत में हो रही है, स्टेट में हो रही है, डिस्ट्रिक्ट में हो रही है, किसी को कुछ पता नहीं, कोई रेगुलेशन नहीं है. रोहिणी जब फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट से मिलने गई, और मैंने बार बार पूछा इससे, जब इसने मुझे डीब्रीफ किया कि अरे यार तुमने जाके उसके सर पे बैठ के उससे पूछा तो कि उसका डॉक्यूमेंट कहाँ है उसका पेपर. एक ने तुम्हें एक रजिस्ट्री दिखाई थी जहां पर कुछ स्क्रिबल लिखा था, कुछ नहीं है, कहीं कुछ नहीं. तो ये तो गलत हो रहा है ना. तो ये एक, और तीसरा सबसे बड़ा सवाल है, ये सब करने के बाद इंडिया को डबल अकाउंटिंग नहीं होगी. क्योंकि अगर हमने ये सारे पेड़ का क्रेडिट हमने किसी और को बेच दिया, तो जैसे आपने पहले सेशन में सुना, दैट्स व्हाई आई वांट यू टू मेक द कनेक्शन. TOF, trees outside forest. This is all about trees outside forest. Now the trees outside forest are being sold to a third party. And the contracts we have seen says that you have no right now over that tree. Okay? So what happens? So these are big questions, and again I am saying this not as somebody against carbon credits, but asking for the market to get regulated. इसीलिए जब मॉन्टेक जी और अमिताभ जी पहली दफे कह रहे थे मार्केट 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 मार्केट, प्राइस 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 प्राइस, मैं उनको कहना चाहती थी, भाई ये जो आपका मंत्र है ना खोखला है जहां तक प्राइवेट कंपनियों पर आता है, क्योंकि जैसे प्राइवेट कंपनियों के ऊपर आप पूछिए ट्रांसपेरेंसी तो वो कहते हैं कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी। हमें लास्ट टाइम लिख के भेजा था, ये कौन सी कंपनी, EKI कोई मनीष डबरा, ओके। हमने उनको लिखा कि आप सब कर रहे हैं तो हमें ऑफिशियल एंड हमने कोट करके इसको लिखा है। उन्होंने लिखा कि हम अभी मौन व्रत के पीरियड पे हैं, हम नहीं बात कर सकते। कंपनी ने वी आर इन अ पीरियड ऑफ साइलेंस,
फर्स्ट गांधीयन कंपनी,
वी आर इन अ पीरियड ऑफ साइलेंस, देन देयर इज नो बहुत प्रेस रिलीजेस आती हैं, बहुत बड़े आदमी हैं ये। फिर दूसरा हमने एक फ्रेंच कंपनी को लिखा, एक अकरू क्या नाम है, अराकू वैली के अंदर एक प्रोजेक्ट है टू प्लांट ट्रीज एंड दिस वाज डन विद द फ्रेंच कंपनी। सो वी रोट टू द फ्रेंच कंपनी कि हमारे, ये रोहिणी ने लिखा था कि हम उस गांव में जाना चाहते हैं, वी वांट टू विजिट इट। हमें ऑफिशियल ईमेल पे आंसर आया कि मैडम आप मत चलिए, ये इंसर्जेंसी अफेक्टेड एरियाज हैं, यहाँ पर रोड बहुत खराब है, आप पहुंच नहीं पाएंगे। ठीक है, हमारे को लिख रहे हैं फ्रेंच कंपनी,
पक्का रोड है उधर,
अब पक्का है कच्चा है जो भी है, ये जर्नलिस्ट है, ये तैर के जाएगी, ठीक है। काम है कच्चा पक्का तो हमारा सवाल ही नहीं है, मगर आप बताइए फ्रेंच कंपनी आप लिख के दे रही है, ठीक है। तो ये लेवल ऑफ एरोगेंस, कंप्लीट लैक ऑफ ट्रांसपेरेंसी एंड अ कंप्लीट स्कैम दिस थिंग इज बिकमिंग।
Can states can regulate this? State can regulate this?
Country not regulated.
All the
Country not
countries.
regulated. अरे यार कोई तो करे भाई, I don't care कौन करे।
So individual states can.
करे किसने मना किया? किसने मना किया? Come to register with me before you will do a project in my state. Okay? हमने ये कहा था मध्य प्रदेश वगैरह जिसमें। चलिए सुपर्णो जी, नहीं अब मैं नहीं और कर सकती, अब आपका क्वेश्चन लास्ट चलिए सुपर्णो।
थैंक यू मैम। एक्चुअली मुझे रोहिणी से क्वेश्चन है, आप जब पुणे विजिट किया, आई एम फ्रॉम महाराष्ट्र, मेरा नाम सुशन है, रीजनल न्यूज़पेपर में काम करता हूँ, सहारा मीडिया ग्रुप। एक्चुअली में अभी आपका होने के बाद कुछ किसानों से बात किया, औरंगाबाद जिले में 40 किसान ऐसे हैं जिन्होंने ये मोहगनी प्लांटेशन किया है। जो कंपनी का आप नाम बता रही थी वो कंपनी ब्लैक लिस्टेड है इन महाराष्ट्र में। वो कंपनी ने 2.5 लाख रुपए एक किसान से लिए है, 1 एकड़ में 420 प्लांटेशन कर सकते हैं, और वो कंपनी ने 420 पौधे लगाने के 2.5 लाख रुपए लिए हैं एक किसान से, और एक पेड़ आता है 230 रुपए। तो और उसमें से कंपनी ने कुछ किसानों को 50 से 70 हजार रुपए दे दिए हैं कार्बन क्रेडिट के रूप में, मतलब किसानों से को लूट के जा रहा है। मुझे आपको ये पूछना था कि क्या किसान कहाँ कंप्लेन नहीं कर सकते कंपनी के खिलाफ?
उनको so one farmer actually complained कि I mean when he took it up with the company, तो उन्होंने बोला कि केस डाल देंगे आपके ऊपर, so they don't know what to do.
देखिए अगर आप किसी गरीब से आप सोच लीजिए क्या सिस्टम आपने बनाया। मैं गरीब फार्मर हूँ, कंपनी आई मुझसे कुछ पेपर साइन कराया, पेपर लेके चली गई। उसके बाद जैसे रोहिणी ने बताया, किसी किसान से पूछा कि तुमने क्या किया, तो कहते हैं उन्होंने आके हमको धमकी दी कि अगर आप कुछ करेंगे तो हम आपके अगेंस्ट केस फाइल कर देंगे। और अगर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के पास, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट कहती है ये तो आपका निजी मामला है भाई, आपने उस कंपनी के साथ साइन किया, हमें बीच में क्यों ला रहे हैं, हमें क्यों बीच में ला रहे हैं? तो वो यही होगा कि आपको केस फाइल करना पड़ेगा। अब आप बताइए किस किसान के ऊपर इतनी वो है कि वो केस फाइल करें? ये सिस्टम ही गलत है।
औरंगाबाद जिले के 40 किसान सफर हो रहे हैं।
इनने भी देखा, ये भी जाके देख के आई है, तो ये अच्छी बात है। जितना हम इसके ऊपर लिखेंगे, जर्नलिज्म करेंगे, ये जमीन की जो हकीकत है आगे आएगी, वो कुछ बदलेगा। शुक्र लोग अब आ जाए। चलिए लास्ट सेशन, अब जो भी बचे कुछ लोग हैं उसकी हम फोटोग्राफ तो लेंगे, एक ग्रुप फोटोग्राफ तो ले लीजिए।
चार दिन के बचे हुए
हाँ नीचे नहीं खाने से जाने से पहले आ जाए सुपर
नहीं, so what are we doing?
We are just thanking
We are just thanking everybody and closing, and maybe if आप लोग खुद कुछ कहना चाहें, so you are most welcome. But right now there is not much to say that I can say at least. I mean, many thanks to all of you, our old friends, a lot of new faces. I'm really grateful that you found the time to come. That's all I can say.
I want you to give the numbers. So you sent me numbers right now. नहीं आप बताइए, आपने मुझे अभी नंबर्स भेजे थे, मैं तो देख भी नहीं पाई हूँ भाई, ये कहाँ है आपने? हाँ, ये आपने मुझे भेजे, ये आपने मुझे अभी नंबर्स भेजे हैं कि हमारे 3 दिन के सोशल मीडिया के क्या एंगेजमेंट हैं।
तो अनिल अग्रवाल डायलॉग के जो सोशल मीडिया के एंगेजमेंट 3 दिन के हैं, तो हमारी एक छोटी सी टीम है जो ऊपर मीडिया रूम में बैठ के ट्रैकिंग कर रही है, अपना काम कर रही है चुपचाप। राकेश यहाँ पे है नहीं,
मैं उनको दोनों बुलाना चाहती हूँ।
So as of an hour back, we had a 3.4 million reach and approximately 50,000 engagements.